Shailesh Bhai, I think I request you to unmute yourself. Uh, Sunil, you can unmute him, please. Yes. Welcome, Shailesh Bhai.
Yeah, thank you.
At the outset, thank you very much for consenting to take it up. Shailesh Bhai everybody knows him. I think there's nobody in India who know him because he must have spoken across India. At least that's what I know. I don't know outside India, but across India, almost in every forum, in every part, right from Assam to Mumbai, Jammu and Kashmir to Kerala, every association he has become a very prolific speaker. I would say also a member of our own bar with a long practice and right from excise days, service tax and GST. And you will see him on many various academic fronts, giving regular, valuable inputs. And as a person, we all know he's excellent. So with these words, I request Shailesh Bhai to proceed. Shailesh Bhai, as I said, about 35 to 40 minutes your presentation, 5 minutes for the question answers. Over to you, Shailesh Bhai. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Krishnan, for the kind and appreciative words. The respected Sri Lodha sir, dear Sunil, my learner friend Bharat, and dear participants. Good morning to all of you. It's a wonderful opportunity to address this webinar on behalf of the Mumbai Bar Association. And I'm sure all these initiatives by different entities will keep us going on through these extremely stressful days and days of the masterly inactivity of the lockdown. The today's topic is slightly sensitive, bit controversial also. I will just share my very free and frank views, which I have been always sharing on this subject with all of you, with the time available with me. Friends, it is extremely difficult to imagine any tax system without tax disputes. These tax disputes may arise for a variety of reasons which do not need elaboration here. It is rightly said that certainty and predictability are two critical elements of any sound taxation system because it propels the economic growth by encouraging the investments. The opposite is also true. When a taxation system or the tax laws are marred by uncertainty and instability and vagueness, then it discourages the investments and therefore it hampers the economic growth. Therefore, the tax dispute mainly arises because of the very vague drafting, varied interpretation, and both the varying sides, both the opposite sides, the taxpayer and the tax man, trying to make most out of its own interpretation. Since tax disputes cannot be avoided, the policymakers across all the taxation jurisdictions in the world have been trying to find out the remedial measures, if not completely to eliminate, but at least to reduce the possibilities of the tax disputes. Generally, two mechanisms are provided or resorted to for addressing these malaise of the tax disputes. The one is dispute resolution mechanism. And second is dispute prevention mechanism. Indian taxation system, whether in direct tax or indirect tax, is not an exception. Dispute resolution mechanism provides the statutory remedies for addressing any tax dispute, and it starts with the adjudication process and generally ends with the final appeal before the Supreme Court. It takes within its fold even the settlement commission. On the other hand, advance authority ruling is purely a tax prevention mechanism. It's when an applicant approaches the advance authority, he does not have the dispute on hand, but he apprehends some dispute might be arising in future about as far as his tax liability in the proposed transaction is concerned, or he wants to be certain about the tax liability in case of a transaction which he proposes to enter into. So he seeks the opinion or the decision of this advanced authority, which is the statutorily constituted body under the Act. The birth of advanced authority ruling in Indian taxation regime can be traced to Dr. K.N. Vancho's committee of 1971. It was finally introduced in income tax in 1993, and over the next 2 decades or so, it was extended to indirect tax covering excise, service tax, and customs. Now, it has been grandfathered into GST regime as well. Having said so, if there is any similarity between the advanced authority ruling as prevalent in direct tax and also in indirect tax, and now in the GST regime, the similarity ends here, and how that we will see in a minute. The provisions governing the advanced authority ruling are contained in very few sections, section 95 to 106 of the CGST Act 2017, read with section 14 to 16 of the IGST Act, UTGST Act, I beg your pardon, and also corresponding provisions of the state GST Act, as well as the rules made thereunder, that is under CGST rules from 103 onwards, as well as the CGST, like in Maharashtra, the rules made under Maharashtra GST rules. As would be seen from the scheme, as would be from the provisions or the provisions which are governing this advanced authority ruling, there are 3 authorities which have been constituted. One is authority for advanced ruling. Second is appellate authority for advanced ruling. And third is National Appellate Authority for Advanced Ruling. National Appellate Authority for Advanced Ruling, the governing provisions are section 101A to section 101C of the CGST Act, which have been inserted in the statute by the Finance Number 2 Act 2019, but have not been effectuated yet. I'll repeat, National Appellate Authority for Advanced Ruling have not become operational yet. The provisions are yet to be operationalized. Coming to the, I'll just deal with these today, sir, because as the title says, the subject says, why we should shun we should shun the advanced authority ruling. I'll just deal with it in the context of 2 things. One is constitution of these authorities, advanced authority as well as the appellate authority, and the controversial rulings which are being doled out by these authorities, and the manner in which these rulings are actually rendered by them. Let me first take the constitution of the first 2 authorities, the basic advanced authority ruling and appellate advanced authority ruling. The friends, you will find that section 96(3) of the Maharashtra State GST Act, for instance, and I'm sure the corresponding provisions would also be contained in other state GST Act. That section, coupled with the provides for, and the rule 103. Section 95 speaks about the advanced authority, the definition section, and it says authority is mentioned. When we say about authority, it is advanced authority for ruling, as referred to in section 96 onwards. And then the appointment is left to the rules. Both rule 103 of CGST rules and rule 103 of the Maharashtra State GST rules, for example, I'm just taking it as for the purpose of example, both deal with the appointment of the members on the advanced authority. The Maharashtra GST rule says the central government and state government shall appoint officer of the rank of the joint commissioner as member of the advanced authority for advanced ruling. Mark my words, central government and state government shall appoint officer of the rank of joint commissioner as member of the authority for advanced ruling. section as against that, Rule 103 of CGST rules is amended retrospectively from 1/7/2017 by notification 22/17 central text dated 17/8/17. It was amended in about 1.5 months after introduction of GST, but retrospectively. That Rule 103 of CGST rules says the government shall appoint, here government means central government, the government shall appoint officers not below the rank of Joint Commissioner as member of the Advanced Authority. Maharashtra GST rule says officers of the rank of Joint Commissioner, and the CGST rule says officers not below the rank of the Joint Commissioner. We'll come to that in a minute. Then section 96(3) of the Maharashtra GST rule says the qualifications, the method of appointment of the members, and the terms and conditions of their service shall be such as may be prescribed. And this is, and Advanced Authority are all constituted under the respective state GST acts, in which central government nominates a member of the level of Joint Commissioner. State government also nominates a member as a Joint Commissioner, and these are functioning as Advanced Authority. And interestingly, the CGST Act main provision, the main parent act do not speak about prescription of the qualifications or tenure or other terms and conditions governing the appointment of the members. This is provided under the section of the Maharashtra GST Act or the State GST Act only. The first point here is the dichotomy between the state GST rules, that is Rule 103, which says of the rank of Joint Commissioner, and Rule 103 of the CGST rules, which says not below the rank of Joint Commissioner. That is very, very evident. Since Advanced Authorities are actually established under the State GST Act, and it says of the rank, it means neither the officer below this rank of Joint Commissioner or above the rank of Joint Commissioner can be appointed. If we go by the CGST rules, then it says not below the rank of Joint Commissioner. It means Joint Commissioner and above the officer rank above Joint Commissioner can also be appointed. And this dichotomy between the two legislations have yet not been addressed. And as of now, only Joint Commissioners are functioning as the members of the Advanced Authority. The other issue which has arisen here is, and that is, there was a widespread claim and belief that minimum 3 years experience will be prescribed for even the officer who will be nominated as members. It is very shocking to find that there is no mention, absolutely no mention about the years of experience, the duration of experience which would be required for a member, even Joint Commissioner, to become a member, to be nominated as a member of the Advanced Authority. Absolutely no prescription whatsoever. That has been quietly buried. If it was a part of the model GST law, I'm not very sure. But there has been this claim all along between model GST law and the final enactment that the officer with the experience of 3 years will be nominated as a member of the Advanced Authority. The other shocking thing is, though the Section 96(3) of the State GST Act clearly provides for the prescription of the qualifications, the method of appointment, tenure, and other terms and conditions, till date, no such prescription. There has been no. This can be prescribed by the rules, and no rules have been prescribed as of now, laying down the qualifications, tenure, method of appointment as far as the members of the Advanced Authority are concerned. It is as if merely because the officer is of the rank of Joint Commissioner, that is sufficient qualification, that is a sufficient experience to become a member, to be nominated as a member. And this is extremely, extremely serious. Just compare this in the juxtaposition with the National Appellate Authority for Advanced Ruling, which is to be chaired by the chairman of the stature of the Supreme Court judge, then or the retired High Court judge with 15 years experience, then the revenue officer, and one from the Indian Legal Service officer with the years of experience in the revenue and taxation matters. But for the basic advance authority, no qualifications have been prescribed, no experience have been prescribed, no rules have been made till date. And they are functioning, even though the statute mandate such prescription, advance authorities across all the states and union territories are actually functioning in the most brazen and indifferent manner, and in total disregard, their functioning is in total disregard of the statutory mandate, according to me. Coming to the appellate advance authority ruling, it is the same story. The state GST Act says appellate advance authority ruling should be constituted uh, of two members, one chief commissioner of the central tax, that is CGST, and another commissioner of tax. In the wet legislation, beyond commissioner, they do not have any further higher rank, like in central taxes, like chief commissioner, principal chief commissioner. Such authorities do not exist under the state level. So it says, simply says, chief commissioner of CGST and the commissioner of tax. There is not a single provision in the CGST Act or the rules, or the state GST Act or the rules, which even provide for the prescription of the qualifications, experience for such members to become the members of the appellate advance authority rule. No, there is no requirement also even to prescribe. At least as far as the advance authority is concerned, the first advance authority ruling is the first year. We can compare roughly, crudely with the adjudicating authority. There is at least some requirement to prescribe. Whether it has been prescribed or not doesn't matter. But for the appellate authority, there is not even a requirement to. Just because a person is of the level of the commissioner of tax and the chief commissioner of tax, that is sufficient enough qualification to become the members of the appellate authority for advance ruling. And from here, the whole problem start. As of now, friends, up to March 20, 1,255 applications have been received by all the states together. Advance authority ruling have received total 1,255 applications, out of which 857 have been disposed of up to March, and 398 is the closing balance as on March end. Similarly, appellate advance authority ruling have altogether received 180 appeals, out of which 133 have been disposed of and 47 are still pending. So if you go by the disposal is quite, if you go by the number of applications in a short span of about 3 years, one would gather an impression that the advance authority ruling is gaining in the popularity and has become a favorite forum for the taxpayers and the tax professionals to approach in case of the apprehension about their tax liability and to resolve to nip it in the bud at the first instance. The actual experience says otherwise. Notwithstanding the number of applications flowing into the advance authority ruling and the disposal, yes, there is an increase in the speed of the disposal, which is also offset by the deteriorating quality of the rulings. In fact, both are into the inverse proportion. The speed increases, the quality deteriorates, and we have been witnessing this now time and again. As far as the Constitution is concerned, it is the one would also gather an impression that this has become, the whole authority has become a placement bureau for the bureaucrats. Probably they understood the importance of this authority under the GST regime more than the trade and industry and the tax professional could understand ever. And therefore, there was absolutely not a whisper against the way this entire mechanism has been set up, the provisions have been drafted, and the authorities have been functioning. They have practically, the bureaucrats have cornered this the all important authority under the GST regime, which is a part of almost all foreign VAT jurisdictions across the world. And they are playing a sterling role. They are expected to play a very sterling role. The first and foremost, now it is very clear, it would be very clear to all that joint commissioners manning the advance authority and the chief commissioner sitting with the commissioner of tax, state commissioner of tax, manning the appellate authority. It means that the revenue bias would be too visible and cannot be ruled out at all. What is really disturbing is that the very joint commissioners who are sitting as the members of the advance authority ruling are also simultaneously discharging the executive and administration functions. So the moment they leave the court, they go back to their cabin and attend to the administration and the executive function. The story doesn't end here. There is since the chief commissioner and the commissioner of tax, who are the members of the appellate authority, are the higher officers, the very joint commissioners whose ruling are subject matter of the appeal before this very two the very bench comprising of these two higher officers. These joint commissioners are also reporting to the very chief commissioner or commissioner of tax. And one can imagine that the justice is practically buried at the doorstep only. When the revenue officers are manning the advance authority ruling, and the subordinate officers who are occupying the advance authority, who are otherwise reporting the very higher officer who are going to act as the appellate authority, it is practically impossible to even look for a very judicial order from this. And going from the advance authority to appellate authority also means that you are actually appealing from Caesar to Caesar with practically no relief. It is like from the going to the revenue officers only. Here I may point out that the major foreign jurisdictions also have the tax administration only manning the advance authority. Advance authority ruling is the part of almost all VAT jurisdictions. The WTO requires it. The trade facilitation agreement also requires. Article 3 also requires it. OECD has also recently, in September 2017, published a report of the survey of 55 countries which are the members all over the world. And as far as this advance authority ruling mechanism is concerned. And they have come out with some sterling data also on this. But Australian tax office is actually basically acts as the advance authority ruling in Australia. In Canada, it is Canada Revenue Agency which acts as the advance authority ruling. In UK, it is Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. They are only acting as the advance authority ruling. In South Africa, it is South Africa Revenue Service Advance Authority. They are acting as the advance authority ruling. However, I don't know whether the Indian bureaucrats, while drafting the law, have taken the cue from these countries or not, and therefore restricted it. The members are only nominated from the revenue stream. I don't know that. The question here is, in all these countries, we have adopted the VAT, who have adopted the VAT decades back. Obviously, there has not been any hue and cry against the tax administration acting as the advance authority ruling. It means they are doing their job judiciously and diligently. Can we really say this about the advance authority rulings in India? most of the ruling, 90% of the rulings honestly have gone into the favor of the revenue. If out of these almost 900 and odd, around 850 odd rulings, if you see that. And it is not the question of ruling going into the favor of revenue or in favor of the applicant, having said that. It's a question of the quality of the ruling. Most of the rulings make very, very superficial attempt to address the issue. Most of them are cryptic and passed, and quite a few are even passed in a rather cavalier fashion. I'm sorry to say that. These are mostly unreasoned and non-reasoned order. Most of the rulings are unreasoned. The latest case of Claycraft by the Karnataka, the Rajasthan High Court, the Rajasthan AAR in the director's remuneration. All the substantial arguments of the litigant applicant completely brushed aside. Nothing has been dealt with, not a single argument has been dealt with, and a very abrupt conclusion has been reached that the GST under reverse charge is payable on the director's remuneration by the company. I'll come to that in a minute later on. The GST is an extremely interesting piece of legislation. Its journey started as back as in 1919, but first in 1948 by Brazil, and then by France, and then 1967 by Brazil. And after that, this particular taxation system has not looked back. Having said that, the value added, this is a value added, destination-based value added tax. It is quite interesting and some of the very complex features. And therefore, and with the technological advances and the variety of the transactions which take place day in, day out, thousands and thousands, and the novel way in which the businessmen enter into the arrangement require that this law not only has to keep the pace, but those dealing with the law and those who are interpreting the law also have to keep pace with this changing environment. And this requires that the authorities who are acting, the members who are acting as the advance authority ruling, who are doling out the advance authority ruling, should have sufficient insight, experience, and maturity, because so much depends upon the ruling which they are going to give. It is one thing where the dispute has already arisen, and then it ultimately lands into the Supreme Court. But it is another thing when you are trying to need the very possibility of the dispute into the world. So one can imagine the most, the crucial role this particular dispute prevention mechanism is required to play. And therefore, the members manning this institute, manning this entity should be also equally capable, should have that depth of experience. Is it visible anywhere in the current stream of the advance authority ruling, which have been set up? The answer is sadly and unfortunately no. The settled legal position is also being disrupted on the perfunctory and the superficial reasoning, and there are examples abound to just get into these. And also, the conflicting and the contradictory rulings have been actually the bane of the entire system, the way it is functioning. I'll give you a few examples to just drive home this point. Whereas the constitution of the advance authority ruling and the appellate advance authority ruling itself has been basically the root cause of the malaise which is this very functioning of this institute. The contradictory ruling have been another the factor which is actually raising a very serious question. Are these authorities really functioning, or I mean, there is a serious question about the very capability. I'll just put it that way. Let us first take the director's remuneration. The Claycraft Rajasthan Advance Authority ruling 2020 TIOL 64 and Alcon Consultancy Private Limited Karnataka Advance Authority ruling, both have said that director's remuneration reverse charge is applicable and a company is liable to pay. Both the orders are absolutely non-speaking order. And now we have a recent, about 2 days back, another Karnataka Advanced Authority ruling in Anand Kumar Agarwal case, which has made again hit the headlines, that directors' remuneration cannot attract the GST under RCM. The company is not liable to pay. The point is, this issue has stood settled under the previous regime because, if I'm not mistaken, on 6th August 2014, the reverse charge was made applicable to the director services under service tax. And we have a judgment of rent works by Bombay Tribunal, which says that, which holds that reverse charge is not applicable in the context of the service tax. The whole-time director, managing director, or executive director play a dual role. One is a director, and another is the employee. Their TDS is actually deducted under Section 192 of the IT Act. Section 2, subsection 93, read with Section 269 of the Companies Act 2013 also come into play here. And there are a host of other factors which come into play, which would generally lead to the conclusion that the whole-time or executive directors or managing directors, they are the employees of the company. They act also as the employees of the company. And since employer-employee relationship is outside the purview of the GST, being covered by Schedule 3 of the CGST Act, neither supply of the goods nor supply of the service, the reverse charge cannot be attracted. All these arguments have not been dealt at all in Claycraft and Alcon. There is another issue about the whether the provision of goods free of cost in goods to the flood affected people as a part of the CSR activity will attract the reversal of the ITC. Whether it is a provision of goods, whether ITC is available when the goods are freely supplied to the flood affected people in the Kerala. We know that massive flood had hit the Kerala sometime back, and these were allowed as a CSR expenses. In Polycab wire case, the Advanced Authority ruling Kerala AARS said, okay, this will go as a free supply, free disposal, and therefore the ITC will not be available under Section 17, subsection 5, clause D, H. There is a tribunal decision in SL Propec 2018 VIL 621, where it is said that the CSR expenses activity, which is mandated under Section 135 of the Companies Act 2013, raises the image and goodwill of the company, of the taxpayer company, and also helps in the furtherance of the business. Section 7 of the CGST Act says that which defines the supply, it says supplies means any activity, includes any activity as mentioned therein, it is enumerated therein, inclusive definition, undertaken, carried on by a person for another person for a consideration in the course or furtherance of business. The litmus tests are two: consideration as well as further course or furtherance of business. Now, can it not be said that CSR expenditure, which is mandated under the Companies Act, is in the furtherance of business? And what is meant by free? The gift. Gift has a very, very distinct and specific connotation. And so is the disposal. To dispose is meant to get rid of. When I am actually expending, or I am supplying the free of cost goods to a flood affected people or calamity hit people, am I really disposing of? Am I getting rid of? And particularly when it is recognized as a part of the CSR expenses, no such argument, no such actually analysis has been done in these cases. Coming to another case of on the free gift or disposal, 4 judgments in Sanofi India, Maharashtra authority says goods distributed as part of the sales or brand promotion is a free gift, and therefore ITC will not be available as a part of the brand promotion or sales promotion. In Biostate India, the gold coin which have been distributed to the customers at the end of the period and at the end of the scheme are held to be the liable to supply, liable to GST as a supply. In Chennai Port Trust, the Major Port Trust Act 1963 required a hospital to be set up, medical facilities to be set up by the hospital, by the trust for its employees, for which all sorts of procurements were being actually made. On those procurements, ITC was disallowed. In Moksha Agarbatti case, a one unit was given free with a pack of agarbatti. Besides that, there were monetary and non-monetary incentives which were provided by the taxpayer company to its customers. It was held that ITC is not available. These four specific judgments, if you read them very carefully, how perfunctory they have dealt with the issue will become very, very evident. Chennai Ports is by Tamil Nadu, Advanced Authority ruling. Biostate is by the Maharashtra AAR, and Moksha Agarbatti is by the Gujarat AAR. There is another case of printed material, a classic case in the early days, whether the supply of the printed material is a supply of goods or supply of service. You will find two diametrically opposite rulings, one by Telangana AAR and another by West Bengal AAR. Telangana AAR says Macromedia digital equipment 14 GSTL. It says it is a supply of goods. And the photo products, WB West Bengal AAR in photo products company 13 GSTL says that it is a supply of service. And what is interesting, that both have come to this their respective conclusion, which are diametrically in conflict with each other with their own reasonings. The another classic case of the controversial and contradictory rulings are installation of the solar panel solar power plant. Fermi Solar Farms 1435 Maharashtra AR and affirmed by Appellate Authority in 17297. These are all GSTL. Then Dinesh Kumar Agarwal in APAAR, in his case, the very activity, whether it's a works contract or not, mainly solar power plant installation commissioning. AP authority says it is not. And the Maharashtra authority for the very Dinesh Kumar Agarwal in 95 taxman.com 295 says it is yes. In Giriraj Renewable, again the company had approached the advanced authority ruling in two states, and in both the states, Maharashtra as well as Karnataka AAR, both have been upheld or partly upheld by the appellate authority with a diametrically opposite decision. Giriraj Renewables, 12 GSTL and 13 GSTL. By coming to the cross charge, look at the ruling of the Columbia Sportswear Company. I know cross charge has been one of the most controversial issues under the GST, and there have been theories and there have been views which are floating around. My personal view is that if a company, a taxpayer has set up some sort of a liaison office or some sort of an administrative office, even sometimes even setting up a one table space, taking it on a rent with one employee who arranges for the logistic or hotel booking or maybe some petty jobs. Just merely because of that, the cross charge will return, unless and until the establishment in another state is engaged in the taxable supply, merely because it is an establishment in another state does not become a distinct person so as to invite the cross charge, even if the expenses are debited by the HO or the main office which is registered in a different state. This is prima facie, this is my view. And then one can go into the facts. One can, yes, Schedule 1 says the deemed without consideration, distinct person or related person, it will apply. As I always say, it is possible for the legislature, permissible for the legislature to deem something as a supply, even though consideration is not there. But one cannot invent the supply. Therefore, there has to be a supply. Yet another case of the, if you see about Javed Shankar Bhanusali, there are three cases where the love for the advanced authority, love of the advanced authority for Schedule 2, that all entry about the obligation or to do an act or obligation to tolerate an act. The love is manifest in these three decisions. One is Javed Shankar Bhanusali, where the compensation given for the vacating the tenanted premises was held to be liable to GST on the ground that by accepting the hardships of shifting somewhere else, I am tolerating a situation and therefore it is liable. In Bajaj Finance, the dishonor of check charges, the dishonor charges were held to be liable on the same footing, that bank by actually allowing the dishonor of the checks, tolerating the dishonor of checks, collecting the charges, and therefore it is liable to GST. Same view in TP Ajmer distinction. Javadshankar Bhanusali 14 GSTL, Bajaj Finance 19 GSTL, and TP Ajmer Distribution Limited 2019-103 taxman.com. The question here is, and Maharashtra State Power Generation Company Limited 13 GSTL upheld by the appellate authority in 70 GST 411 in liquidated damages. In fact, in MP MSPGC case, this Maharashtra State Power Generation appellate authority went to the extent of even saying that the liquidated damages is an independent supply and will come under the obligation to tolerate in it. In all these four cases, there could be many. I have just taken up the main four few. In all these four cases, the fundamental question has not been addressed. And mind you, all these rulings have been delivered prior to the retrospective amendment to Section 7(1). But the basic question have not been gone into, that whether there is a supply involved into, whether Schedule 2 is a dimming schedule, unlike Schedule 1, or Schedule 2 will come is merely categorizes a transaction involving the supply into supply of goods or supply of service in certain specific circumstances. In other words, was it not always the legislative intent that Schedule 2 can come into play in some specific cases only and only if there is the transaction or activity per se is covered by supply as defined under Section 7. Schedule 2 is not or never intended to be a dimming provision. It is not a dimming schedule. This question, was it not expected for the advance authority ruling to get into this fundamental question? And there comes the lack of the insight, lack of the experience, or the mature thinking. The question here is that fortunately the board found that too much of damage is being done. So a retrospective amendment has been made to Section 7(1), whereby it is now clearly provided under Section 7, subsection 1A, capital A, inserted with effect from 1/7/2017 by 2018 Amendment Act, which says if a transaction or activity is a supply, then it shall be categorized under supply of goods or supply of services in terms of as provided under Schedule 2. But provided, this was always, according to me, this is a clarificatory amendment. Even without this amendment, the legal position was very clear. What was actually lacking was the insight into the, as far as the advance authority is concerned. And similarly, club and membership fees. Again, this also takes a cake, as I would say it. In Lions Club of Pune Kothurud, Maharashtra Advance Authority says membership fees are not liable. The very Maharashtra Authority in Rotary Club of Mumbai Queen's Necklace says it is liable. I'm only on the membership fees in case of the club members. The West Bengal Authority, Appellate Advance Authority ruling in West Bengal has upheld the decision of the Advance Authority in Association of Innerville Club, saying that it is liable to tax. Again, very recently, the Maharashtra Authority in Rotary Club of Mumbai Western Elite has said that it is not liable. And Pune Kothurud Club, not liable. Mumbai Western Elite, not liable. Rotary Club of Queen Necklace, liable. These are all three by Maharashtra Authority. And supply of spirit. Now, the 2019 ruling, I can only say, because the Queen's Necklace came before that, and the Pune Kothurud was also came before that. Here I am reminded of these famous words of the one and only Mr. Nani, our esteemed, the constitutional expert, Mr. Nani Palkhiwala, when he actually spoke something which was actually contrary to what he has actually expressed as a view in his famous commentary on income tax. And when this was pointed out, this contradiction was pointed out, he simply said that I have a right to become wiser by the day. So maybe when this Rotary Club of Mumbai Western Elite in 2019 decided, the members might have become wiser by the day. Probably that is only. But these are the contradictory ruling. Coming back to the Srimad Rajchandra, famous case of Srimad Rajchandra, where the supply of spiritual books and CD and audio have been held to be the supply and liable to. without actually all the judgments which have been cited of Madras Port Trust and the Sai Baba Publication Trust, Supreme Court judgment, the outstanding historic judgments which will come into all force under GST have all been completely brushed aside. So these are certain instances how the contradictory rulings, and one can imagine the plight of the taxpayer who has actually the businesses in the different states, and if he were to approach the court advance authority in different states, and if each state authority, and there are contradictory and conflicting rulings for the same type of activity as is happened in Giriraj Renewable, as is happened in the Dinesh Kumar Agarwal, then you can imagine the plight of the SSC. He would not know what to do. That brings us to the binding effect of the advance authority. Section 103 of the CGST Act clearly says that the ruling of the advance authority is binding only on the parties involved. It is very clearly laid down, and this has been the legal position. Having said so, there are a couple of interesting decisions on this, which says that while the binding nature ruling are binding for parties only, in P. Sekar Trust, 2010 321 ITR, Madras High Court, ITR 305, the Madras High Court has said that there is no bar for the tribunal to take a view, have the reason, or form an opinion which is in consonance with the reasoning of the advance authority ruling, dehorse the binding nature. So the tribunal can refer to, in this particular case, tribunal had referred to the advance authority ruling and thereafter came to the conclusion on an independent basis, but in consonance with the ruling given by the advance authority. And this has been actually approved by the Madras High Court. Similar view has been recently taken by the Mumbai Tribunal in Pipeline Engineering GmbH case 2009 318 ITR 210 Mumbai. In Azad the Bachao Andolan 2003 263 ITR 706, Supreme Court has said that it has does not have the binding effect, but it is having a persuasive value. And that brings me to the last part, whether advance authority ruling can be challenged before the High Court or not. Recently in the JSW case 2019 VIL 276, Bombay High Court said it cannot be challenged. The appeal would not lie. They have relied upon the Supreme Court judgment in Srimati Sudha Patil in 1999 235 ITR, saying that if the specific powers of appeal are not provided, then the High Court cannot exercise the jurisdiction under Article 226 and then sought to exercise the appellate powers. This is not permissible. However, Supreme Court in Columbia Sportswear have clearly stated that that is 283 ELT 321. This is a three judges judgment that advance authority ruling being a tribunal can be subjected to review by a bench of High Court. Division bench of High Court can actually undertake the review of the advance authority ruling. Similar view is in UAE Exchange Center 236 ELT 223 Delhi High Court, that it has all the trappings of the court. Another view, same view by the advance authority ruling itself in 2019 9313 ITR Worley Parsons Services Private Limited. So, friends, in my opinion, the tribunal, the advance authority ruling having all the trappings of the court, and as held by the Supreme Court in Columbia Sportswear, its ruling can be subject matter of the challenge before the High Court. In fact, Kerala High Court in JJ Fabrics has admitted and then finally remanded the matter back to the advance authority for the renewal decision. But there could be some further fireworks on this particular issue in the coming days, I am sure. Lastly, with all these controversies surrounding, a National Appellate Authority will not be really an answer as such. We will be only unnecessarily burdening this august authority, which will be manned by the very experienced and the officers of the high stature, the persons of the high stature like Supreme Court judge and High Court judge and revenue officers, deputy secretary level. Basically, it is a question of cleaning the agent's table at the first level of advance authority and the authority and the appellate authority. The dangers of approaching advance authority ruling are quite clear now, and particularly for the litigant who is having the operations in the different states. The binding nature or otherwise, let us always remember that any adverse ruling which is not well reasoned, the revenue can pick up the reasoning from that without citing that advance authority ruling. They can always pick up the gist of the ruling, idea from that ruling, and finally they can raise the demand. This is already happening as of now. Without citing the advance authority ruling, they are taking the cue and raising all sorts of disputes and demands against the authority. And Revenue Bar Association Chennai, as you are all aware, has already challenged the constitutional validity of the advance authority provisions and the constitution of advance authority ruling. It was filed in September 18. It was to come up on October 18. However, thereafter it appears there has been no further progress in the matter. It is the dire need of the hour that this cleanup is undertaken fast as far as this particular very important institution is concerned. It is in the larger and the good of the taxpayers, revenue also, and the judicial system, the law itself. Otherwise, we are creating lot many issues. It's becoming a fertile ground for the dispute. The whole purpose is to avoid the dispute, and it is actually bowing the seeds for the disputes in future. Judicial system, friends, I'll just end by saying that judicial system should inspire the trust and confidence. A litigant losing the case may feel disappointed. He should not feel let down. It should be provision driven, principle driven, and precedent driven. It cannot be personality driven. And this is what is becoming as far as the advance authority ruling is concerned. So if somebody were to ask me finally why I should not why I should avoid the advance authority ruling, my only answer will be you should avoid only because there are better ways of committing suicide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shailesh Bhai. It was an excellent exposition of contradictory advance ruling. Also, your end of the reasoning saying that there is a bias because the officers who are appointed are also doing executive function plus a judicial function, and hence there is no Chinese wall, and hence the decision may not be so judicious. And then ultimately also all these decisions are getting in some way, though it has got only persuasive value for other than the applicant, they are used by the department to issue show cause notice to the SSC. So sum and substance, Shailesh Bhai, your advice is look at other alternatives. Advance ruling should never be in advance as far as possible. Yeah, am I right, Shailesh Bhai?
Yeah. I'm saying that there is no backward authority than the advance authority ruling.
Okay.
And the Honorable Prime Minister yesterday talked about the tax reform. I would probably feel that this authority for the timing should be completely dismantled and should be reconstituted.
Okay. Thank you. And Shailesh Bhai, there is only one thing. There are no questions. I think everybody, your last punchline, since everybody feel that is not an option at all. So there is no questions at all. But I have only one question. I have come to know a lot of people who go for advance only so as to convince the client who keeps on saying this is not liable, this is exempted, or for whatever reason it is this tariff. He says, here's my advance ruling. Okay. Now it is liable. Now I'm entitled to charge you GST. Hence, they say this is the main purpose, especially on a cross-border transaction where foreigners don't want to take any risk. They say you get a ruling that it is liable, then we'll pay the GST. So the whole purpose, it appears, is not to get a decision which is, shall I say, judicious, but a decision which helps me to recover my tax. What do you say of this?
Yeah, I've come across these cases where the buyer recipient, the customer or the client has insisted upon, okay, you go and bring the advance authority ruling so that I can, then only I will pay.
Yeah.
Whether there was a scope for any doubt or confusion or not. This is unfortunately not a very, a proper thing to do. But this is the parties. We are helpless into that. My
Yeah.
point here is this, that when there is a doubt or apprehension about a taxability or any such issue, before going to advance OT ruling, one should very critically examine all the options available, starting with, it can be, there are any number of options. Right now, due to constraint of time, I'm not going into that. But law itself provides a lot of options. I'm not saying that you take up the fight. Indirect tax dispute should be avoided because the litigation is a costly business in indirect tax. I wouldn't really recommend that. What I'm trying to say, that one should not be adventurous. What I'm trying to say, that just approach the advance authority ruling as a last, absolutely last resort, and don't take the shelter under the saying that the client is insisting upon, if I don't go, then he will go to somebody, some other professional to do the job. We are actually clearing the pitch for the smooth implementation of this law. This law will remain in the flux for another few years, maybe decade, maybe. But definitely another 5 years, we are going to have the harrowing time, as I see that. There will be complete revamping. In that, all these rulings are creating, lot of issues and lot of bottlenecks. And the whole system is becoming the completely dispute-ridden system. That's why I say, okay, please do the homework. Please go through critically the whole aspect. The two things should never guide us. Our thinking under GST, either I'll pay it because I can collect it from the customer, and two, just because ITC is available, let me not bother about anything. These two should not drive our understanding about this law and implementing about this law. All the options should be carefully and critically examined.
Thanks. Thank you, Shailesh Bhai. Thank you very much. It's been excellent exposition with contradictory thing and also your analysis of each case laws. I would request our senior member and president of the bar, Mr. Loda, to do the summing up, and then thereafter I can make an announcement for the next session. Over to you.
Thank
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Krishnan, and thank you, participant. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Shailesh Bhai. Thank you, Bharat. Both of you did an excellent job. Shailesh Bhai, it must be a real difficult situation for you with the kind of width of knowledge and masala that you have to be able to compress it within 45 minutes. I must compliment you first of all for that. I have only two small comments to make on the presentation first. Our experience has shown that neither seniority nor the label attached nor the designation to the person guarantee judicial approach or judicious approach. So therefore, when you talked about the Constitution, I thought what is really important for persons like you, and this could be picked up from bars across the country, to make a core group which could interact with the government, and rather than our sort of, criticize whatever has been done and joint commissioners not having some experience, etc. Perhaps it would be better to have a constructive dialogue with the government in a manner that we already have been doing, and I am aware of that, where your suggestions are taken on board of that group and necessary remedial measures are taken. As you rightly said, we'll have to live with the law, and therefore that constructive suggestions to the government where they will understand that this is not merely a criticism, but a desire to improve the system for overall functioning of everybody else. I think that would be a very important step that should be taken.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you so much for the time taken. Thank you so much for the great efforts you took on behalf of the bar. I thank you very much, Shailesh Bhai.
Thank you, sir.
Bharat, it was a great pleasure.